If you've got almost any kind of workshop, you probably need a bench grinder. An inexpensive, high-speed 6-inch grinder is an incredibly versatile tool in the shop. It'll let you grind the edges of chisels and plane irons, reshape other tools for specialty uses, adjust and modify anything made of steel, clean off rust and dirt from old tools, and get grit and grease out of the threads of fasteners. It handles a huge number of jobs, doesn't take up a lot of space, and isn't very expensive. Even hardcore hand tool woodworking shops often have an electric bench grinder. I've got one, and I would hate to be without it. But for such a simple tool, there's a surprising amount to learn. Which grinder should you buy, and how much money should you spend? What wheels should you put on it? What tool rest do you need? What speed should you run it at? Do you need a variable speed machine? There are a lot of things you need to know, so I bought 3 of the least expensive and most popular grinders on Amazon. In this video, we're going to set them up, test them, run through all of their capabilities, do a full review, try out different accessories, figure out which one you should buy, and I'm going to explain everything you need to know to use these machines in your shop. This is a lot of information, but we're going to keep it quick and easy to understand. I know a lot of people are watching this video just to get my review of these 3 inexpensive grinders, so let's do that right now. The first grinder I bought is the Wen. It goes for $55, and at that price, it's basically the cheapest bench grinder you can get anywhere. It is also a giant piece of crap. I totally hate this machine. Everything about it is flimsy and lightweight. The wheels are too close together, and they're very low to the bench. That makes it really hard to get a wrench under there to even turn the bolts for mounting the machine. It was a surprising pain in the ass. The guards around the wheels are a stupid 3-piece design. They're difficult to take apart when you want to change the wheels, and there's tons of hardware that's easy to lose. The tool rest on the Wen is garbage. It's totally not adjustable, too small, and flimsy. And on top of all of that, this machine suffers from excessive vibration. And it's too light to absorb any of this vibration because all of the construction is so cheap and flimsy. Now, on all of these machines, vibration was an issue. Vibration is bad because when a tool vibrates a lot, it makes it less safe, harder to operate, it cuts down on the tool's life. It's something you really want to avoid, especially in a high-speed tool like one of these. With these inexpensive grinders, a lot of the vibration seems to be that the wheels aren't bored through as true as you would like. That hole isn't as on-center as you would like, and the wheels have some wobble to them. We can adjust some of this by grinding the face of the wheel when we dress them later in the video, but that's not going to fix the entire problem. I even tried putting a replacement wheel on the DeWalt, which already has the least vibration. I used this PowerTech wheel. It only cost $12, and it did have a noticeable effect on vibration, but not a huge effect. It seems like at this price range, you're just going to have to live with a little bit more vibration than you would like. And speaking of vibration, let's get back to talking about the Wen. In addition to everything else I hate about this machine, it also has a very weak motor that bogs down and even stops turning when I'm using the wire wheel. It will handle basic grinding jobs like woodworking tools, but you're going to need to build or buy a better tool rest, and no matter how you add it up, that's going to increase the price of the tool. You can get the Wen if you're totally strapped for cash and all you want to do is grind the bevels on edge tools. But I think you're much better off spending a little bit more money to get a lot more tool. The next grinder is the Shopfox. At $82, it's still quite inexpensive, only a little bit more than the Wen, and when I first got this machine out of the package, I liked it a lot. The Shopfox is much bigger and better built than the Wen. The wheels are higher off the bench, and they're more widely spaced. So install was a snap, and the machine was a lot easier to use. It does have the same stupid 3-piece guard around the wheels and an equally useless, non-adjustable tool rest, but overall, it looks like a robust and well-built machine. I liked it a lot until I went to change the wheels. The arbor on the Shopfox is set up so that it will only take these narrow, 5/8 of an inch wide wheels, and that's kind of a problem because most grinders take 3/4 inch wheels. Most wheels and accessories are in the 3/4 of an inch size. The problem with the Shopfox is that the arbor is threaded in such a way that you can't use anything wider. So I tried to put on a 3/4 inch wire wheel, and I couldn't get the washer onto the unthreaded section of the arbor. That led to way too much vibration. It obviously wasn't safe. So I bought a narrower wire wheel, but that was rubbing on the inside of the guards too much. So I spaced that out on the inside with a stack of 1/2 inch washers, but those also led to excessive vibration. And this problem with the wheel thickness is especially an issue because these wheels that came with the Shopfox look really cheap. They look like they're made out of beach sand, and I don't expect them to last very long. Even the ones that came with the Wen were not just thicker, but also harder and seemed way more durable, which is hilarious. With these Shopfox wheels, you're probably going to need to change them pretty quickly, and you're going to be kind of hard up because there just aren't a ton of wheels and accessories that come in this very narrow 5/8 size. Overall, the Shopfox looks like a great machine, but they made one really boneheaded decision when they designed it, and I can't recommend this tool at all. The DeWalt grinder is the most expensive at $109, and unsurprisingly, it's also the best one. The DeWalt has wheels that are high up and widely spaced. That means install is a snap and you get good access to the wheels while you're using the grinder. The blade guards are a 2-piece design with screws threaded directly into 1/2. That means wheel changes are fast and easy and you're much less likely to lose hardware. The motors on all 3 of the grinders I tested are rated at 1/3 of a horsepower, but the DeWalt is the only one that actually delivers and never bogs down, even when I'm using the wire wheel pretty aggressively. This tool still has a lot of vibration, and apparently you're just going to get vibration in this price range. But it's got a much stouter construction than the other grinders, and it absorbs much more of that vibration. Overall, the DeWalt is the only one that compares to my Dayton grinder that I've had for 15 years and costs double what the DeWalt does. And this thing gets even better because the DeWalt is the only grinder that comes with an actually good tool rest. It adjusts in and out and to any angle that you need. Now, as I'm showing you the tool rest, you might notice these little green pieces of plastic. They did not come with the machine. I'll talk more about that later in the video. The DeWalt wins my 3-grinder shootout in every way, mostly because the included tool rest is actually good and you won't have to build or buy an aftermarket tool rest. Most of the aftermarket rests cost $40 to $50, and after you've bought a cheaper grinder and a tool rest, you could have just bought the DeWalt and got everything you needed in a single package. Now, you might be thinking it's weird that I only reviewed 3 of these when there are 13 or 15 inexpensive grinders on Amazon. The truth is that most of those grinders are just rebadged versions of these 3. So the Shopfox is also sold as the Vivor, the Wen is sold under some other brand name. You get the idea. It's basically 3 models being sold under a bunch of different brand names. These 3 grinders are an excellent representation of all the popular, inexpensive grinders you can buy easily on the internet. And now we know which one to buy, and we've bought it. Now what? After you've got a grinder, the most important thing you need to do is bolt that thing down. Now, what's great is that all grinders have this little metal protective plate underneath, and you can use that as a template for installing the grinder. Just trace it, and that will tell you where to drill the holes. The best thing to do with your grinder is to bolt it down permanently to a separate piece of furniture. I have my 2 grinders on this old media cabinet. I bought it at a yard sale for $10, and it's a tank. It's lasted me for years. If you can't do something like this, you might want to build just a little grinder stand out of 2x4s. That's easy. But maybe you don't have the space for that, and you want to bring your grinder out occasionally. One thing you could do is make a little fixture that drops into your woodworking vise. I made this one with a piece of 2x4 and a scrap of plywood, and it lets me drop a little metalworking vise right into my woodworking vise, but you could do this with a grinder just as easily. Another possibility is just bolt that grinder to a scrap of plywood and C-clamp it to your bench top when you need to use it. It's not perfect to do your grinding on your woodworking bench because of dust and sparks and metal shavings that you don't want near your woodwork. But if you have a small shop and limited space, we all do what we have to do. I worked in the corner of a one-car garage for years, and I did all my grinding on my workbench. It was fine. I got through it. Now, your grinder is going to come with a coarse and a fine grinding wheel, and in over a decade of using these machines, I've never found any use for the fine wheel. I always take it off and replace it with a wire wheel. Wire wheel plus a coarse grinding wheel will handle everything that you need in the shop. Now, changing your wheels can actually be a little trickier than you think. The arbor on your grinder is threaded on both ends, and there's a nut on either end. So it seems like you just put a wrench on either nut and twist. The problem is they're threaded in opposite directions. So as you tighten one nut, the other one actually loosens. And when you first start using a grinder, this can drive you crazy. And it really varies depending on which machine you have. The two cheaper grinders that I tried out for today's video were actually pretty easy for changing the wheels. The DeWalt was really difficult. There's an easy trick for this that really helps. When you want to work on the wheels and you want to take one off or put one on, take a thin stick of wood like this, stick it right up under the blade guard with the machine unplugged for safety, and then just push it up like that. And that puts just enough pressure on the wheel that it's easy to take a wrench and put it right on that nut and loosen or tighten it. When you use this technique for doing it, you can work on one wheel at a time. You don't have to take off both the guards, and it's really dependable. Your wheels never need to be super tight, and in fact, super tight can be dangerous. Just snug is perfectly good, and the stick trick will help you with that. When you're using your grinder, safety is crucial. These machines spin at 3,400 RPMs, which is really fast. They can throw bristles out of the wire wheel, and the grinding wheels can explode. I get the impression that doesn't actually happen very often, but it's possible. So never use the machine without the guards in place. Never grind on the side of the wheel. Those are really important safety tips. Now, every machine I've ever used comes with these clear plastic guards that mount above the wheel right here, and these seem like a great idea. The problem is they get dirty, and then pretty much everybody just pushes them out of the way and keeps grinding. They don't seem to work very well, and in just about every shop I've been at, these guards are no longer on the machine. I think they're kind of impractical. The better thing to do is just to be absolutely sure you put on safety glasses every single time you use the machine. Even a face shield wouldn't be crazy because these are aggressive tools. I keep my safety glasses hanging on the wall right next to my bench grinder, so I've got a visual reminder every single time I go to use the tool that it's time to put the safety specs on. Your grinder doesn't take very much maintenance at all, but you do have to dress the grinding wheels. Dressing means just taking a little layer of material off the outside of the wheel to make it perfectly round and concentric, and to clean it up and smooth it out when the wheel gets worn. Sometimes they get a groove in the middle or kind of a rippled texture. That's not helping anything. You want to dress that out when it happens. Now, the traditional tool for doing this is called a star dresser. It actually has star-shaped little metal hardened wheels here, and these dress the wheel very effectively. I wanted to buy a new one of these. This one's vintage. So I went on Amazon and I thought I was buying this, and instead I bought this hilarious thing instead. It's funny how pictures can be misleading on the internet. I laughed out loud when I took this out of the package. Funny thing though, as stupid as this thing looks, it works just fine. You've got another option for dressing, which is one of these dressing sticks. This is just a stick of aluminum oxide, the exact same material your wheels are made out of. These work really well too, but you use them up over time. I've had the same star dressing wheel for years and years, and I don't think it's worn at all. There's another dressing tool you might be familiar with. This is a diamond dressing tool. Wood turners use these a lot for softer white wheels. These are not aggressive enough to true up these coarse gray wheels. So don't use one of these. You'll need either a dressing stick or one of the star dressing wheels. The actual process is very simple. Set your tool rest flat and close to the wheel, and then come in with your dressing tool. You're just going to wait until it makes contact with the wheel very lightly, and then sweep it back and forth in slow, even strokes. You'll be able to feel when the wheel is trued up, it'll suddenly run very smoothly. And that's enough for most uses. I mostly use my grinder for grinding the edges of woodworking tools, and for that, it's really helpful if the wheel is crowned just a little bit. It's a lot like cambering a plane iron. I'm just going to sweep my dressing tool over to each corner of the wheel and knock them back a little bit until I've got a smooth curve. That slightly crowned wheel is going to heat my tools up less and just generally be more controllable. Overall, dressing your grinding wheels is noisy and dusty and a little startling the first time you do it. You should do it right when you first set up your grinder, and then I only do it maybe once a year after that. It's very obvious when the wheels need to get dressed, and I throw on some breathing protection and do it in just a couple of minutes. People often ask me what materials they can use with their bench grinder, and the short answer is steel. These gray grinding wheels are made for steel. You can do high carbon tool steels, high speed steel, fancy powdered steel, low carbon, mild steel, all of it is fine. Softer metals like brass and aluminum will load up your coarse grinding wheel and you'll have to dress it back or clean it off. I don't recommend using those metals at all on the grinding wheel. With the wire wheel, you can use any metal you want, including aluminum, brass, and copper. It's much more aggressive than a buffing wheel, but it also takes tarnish and other problems off of those metals very, very quickly. I use brass and other soft metals with my wire wheel all the time. A lot of people use these grinders primarily for grinding their woodworking tools. Those are often simple, high-carbon steels. Grinding them is really easy, and the most important thing is the tool rest. Now, the DeWalt does come with a really good tool rest, but it has one major shortcoming. The whole thing fits together with bolts, which means every time you want to adjust it, you actually have to get a wrench out. And ain't nobody got time for that. I mentioned before these little pieces of green plastic, and funny coincidence, we ran into this problem at the exact same time we bought a 3D printer for the shop. My designer Lucas whipped up a comfortable wing nut and a couple of knurled nut covers. These slip right over the original bolts, and they let you do 100% of the adjustments to this tool rest just by hand. Another problem we had is that it was actually tough fitting the wire wheel to the grinder. It actually rubbed against the inside of the guard, much too much actually. This is ironic because I was using entirely DeWalt wire wheels and it's a DeWalt grinder. You would think the wire wheel would fit better. We needed to move the guard over just a little bit, so we also printed out one of these round spacers that just fits in between the housing and the guard. You can use the original screws. It's a piece of cake. Moves the whole thing over 5 millimeters and gets rid of all of those rubbing problems. So we've got a file that you can download for free and print all 4 of these pieces on your 3D printer, or even better, a friend's 3D printer. We've got that linked down in the description with all the products from this video, and my company, Compass Rose Tools, could offer this 4-piece as a kit. So if you'd like us to sell something like this, it would be all of these parts plus the spacer for about $5 plus shipping. Let me know down in the comments if you'd like us to offer something like that. You know, it's funny. I started this video to teach woodworkers how to use grinders like this as part of their sharpening setup. And here we are at the end of the video, and I've barely talked about grinding for sharpening at all. The fact is, grinders are complicated enough and dangerous enough that there was a bunch of stuff I had to run through before we could even put a tool against the grinding wheel. So we're going to split this video up into 2 parts, and part 2 is going to be 2 weeks from now. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell notification so you don't miss it. In part 2, we're going to cover everything you need to know about grinding your tools as part of your sharpening process. We're going to cover wheel grits and sizes and the speed of the grinder. There is so much misinformation on the internet right now. So many people trying to get you to spend money you don't need to spend. I'm going to cover a very simple, inexpensive method for grinding your tools, and we're going to review some more stuff. I've purchased the 2 most popular aftermarket tool rests for sharpening, and we'll review both of those, and that video is going to be in 2 weeks. Now, all the products in this video are also linked down below, so you can check all those out, and we have the free print file for all the little adjustments we made to the DeWalt grinder. You can just grab that for free and print that stuff out. And videos like this are only possible because of my patrons on Patreon. I bet you can tell I spent hundreds of dollars getting all the stuff to make this video. And this channel is unsponsored. We never take anything for free. We pay full retail for every single thing you see on this channel. And that would be impossible without patrons. This video is never going to make enough money on AdSense even to pay back the amount of money we spent buying all this stuff. The patrons are what make it possible for us to do unbiased, independent reviews and really spend money on them. If you'd like to be a patron, go on over to patreon.com/RexKrueger. You can check out all the rewards you get, and you won't have to wait 2 weeks to see part 2 of this video because patrons see everything early. Oh, and you can also check out my online course, Restoring the Vintage Metal Hand Plane. That has a whole 45-minute chapter just on how to use a bench grinder to restore your plane. There's tons of tips and tricks in there that I couldn't get to in this video. We'll put a link to that down below as well. We're going to see you in 2 weeks with our full guide to sharpening using a grinder as step 1. We really hope you'll join us. Thanks for watching.